All right, now that we've looked at parts of a flower, we need to talk about how all of this works together. How do we actually create a seed? So, we're going to talk about fertilization. And you might think you know the word fertilization. Fertilization means we're joining egg and sperm, like fertilizing an egg. And we need to talk about that process in plants. So, first thing that has to happen, we have to get pollen from one flower to another, or from one flower to itself. So, pollination is when pollen is released from the anther. Remember, the anther made the pollen, it's that male part, and it sticks to the stigma, the sticky part on the female part. This might happen on the same flower, or if we have separate male and female flowers, the pollen from one flower might have to land on the stigma from another flower. So this is pollination. There's lots of little pollinators like bees and bats and birds that carry pollen when they're drinking nectar from this flower, carry that pollen from one flower to another. So take a look at these pictures. Here's my little pollen grain. It's landing on the stigma. We got our little eggs inside, our ovules. Notice what's growing here. This pollen grain has to have a way to get to the egg. It's not just empty space here. It can't just travel. It needs a little passageway. So it grows a pollen tube. So this little tube grows, pollen tube, grows in so that it can meet the ovule, and then the little sperm are able to be delivered to the ovule where they can combine with that egg, that ovule, and form a seed. So sperm and egg is how we get fertilization. So we're going to write that down. Our pollen tube is going to grow down the style, and its goal is to deliver the sperm, the pollen has the sperm, to the ovary, to the eggs. And then fertilization is when the sperm and the egg actually combine together. So we had talked about meiosis, making sperm and eggs. Each of those cells has half the number of chromosomes as a normal organism because they're going to combine. In humans, it's 23 chromosomes for sperm, 23 for eggs. They combine, 46 for a baby. All right, so what we're watching here is we're watching our flowers. They bloom, they got to get pollinated. And once they get pollinated, that ovary is going to start to grow. Just watch it grow here. So it's growing, and it becomes our fruit. And inside, we're going to have our seeds that if they drop onto the ground, they're going to create our new plant, our new apple tree. All right. So step 4 then is that the ovary develops into fruit with the seeds inside. So remember, if you're eating a fruit, you're eating an ovary. Which leads to the next thing. What the heck is a fruit by definition? I had you pick out what are vegetables and what are fruits. So a fruit is just a ripened ovary with seeds. You may or may not actually have this definition on here. I will not require you to know it for this test, so you don't need to write it down. If you have it on your note packet, feel free to write it down though. A fruit is a ripened ovary with seeds. So anything that has seeds that you're eating is a fruit. So if you think about zucchini, those have seeds. If you think about tomatoes, those have seeds. Technically corn are little seeds. Each individual corn is a seed. So corn is a fruit. A vegetable then, any edible part of a plant that's not a fruit. So it could be the leaves, could be spinach or lettuce or kale, could be the roots like onions or potatoes or turnips or beets. Could be the stem like celery or rhubarb. So it's anything that's not necessarily a fruit, and usually they're not going to have seeds in them. All right, the last thing here, how do our flowers attract pollinators? You probably did an activity with me looking at different pollinators. And so flowers attract pollinators in lots of different ways. They have different colors of flowers. They have different smells. They bloom at different times. So, for example, like moths and bats are active at night. So, some flowers actually bloom at night. They might be a specific shape, like really long and skinny for a hummingbird's beak, or maybe they're wide because the shape of that mouth part is really shallow. So flowers attract these pollinators so that they can reproduce, create these fruits in a variety of ways. Oh, and size.